Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 597 on Wednesday, the 25th of September, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan. And yes, it's just me this week. We recorded a day late because Andrew had some fun podcast stuff to do, but unfortunately something else has come up today as well. So rather than just leave it or leave it another day, you've just got me for the next little while, I'm afraid. This was all very last minute. I haven't written any menu items, so insert 3 witticisms that reflect the state of current affairs here, and I'll move straight on into new news. So the first thing we have in new news is that the European motor industry is warning that it's going to miss CO2 targets as EV sales fall. Vehicle sales, car sales generally, fell quite, I was going to say impressively, but really it's the opposite of that. Fell quite dramatically in August. They were down 16.5%. So that's across Europe, which is the European Free Trade Association and the UK. Last month, they're down 16.5% compared with August 2023. Just so you're aware, that's 755,717 new cars registered. Of these, 16.5% were electric. That's a fall from 21.7% last August as well. Also falls in market share for plug-in hybrid. They fell from 7.5% of the market to 7%, and diesel from 11.5 to 10.1. Pure petrol fell from 30% of the market to 32.5%, whilst conventional hybrids, so that's non-plug-in, rose significantly from 24.2% market share to 31.3%. This has been an ongoing trend across Europe. I think the UK may be bucking that slightly, but this is an ongoing trend across Europe. Meanwhile, in Brussels, the European Commission has said, tough luck, you've had long enough. And they've said that specifically to various car makers who are calling for delays to the 2025 CO2 reduction targets. And the EC is saying that the industry has had ample time to prepare for changes. I think there's a certain amount of truth in that. That sure, the industry's had plenty of time to prepare for changes, but the consumers haven't necessarily had the time to prepare for the changes, and I don't know if there's a disconnect between the two, perhaps in the minds of the European Commission, or just a distinct, I was going to say a lack of awareness. There's probably a certain amount of lack of awareness there, but then the $60,000 question is: do the legislators care really? And well, yeah, dubious, possibly. Yeah, there's a bit more discussion on that. I'll link you to obviously in the show notes will be a link to the AM Online article about that by Amy Taylor. Definitely worth a bit of a read if you want some more details on that. It's not really the right thing to go into them here on this, but if you want some more, excellent article there on AM Online. Meanwhile, here in the USA, the US Commerce Department has decided not to wait for the inevitable bad thing happening, and has announced plans that it was going to ban connected vehicle technology and vehicles using it that has come from Chinese and Russian sources. The Bureau of Industry and Security has said that it was proposing a rule that would prohibit the import and sale of vehicle connectivity system, a VCS, or automated driving systems, that's ADS, hardware or software made by a manufacturer with a nexus to China or Russia. The proposed rules would also ban the incorporation of VCS and ADS tech from China or Russian in vehicles manufactured within the US. So, you've got to make sure, if you are reading through that, it seems that systems built with components which came from China or Russia may be okay, but I think it's if the entire system and the integration between it is Chinese or Russian, then that's where there's going to be an issue. Be interesting to see if that causes a problem for any of the US domestic car manufacturers. One thing the Commerce Department hasn't answered are questions about how vehicles made by US automakers in China for sale in the US market, how that will fit into the law. But supposedly there's a provision in the proposed rules by which manufacturers can apply for an exemption. Remember, of course, that this comes on top of the tariffs on Chinese manufactured electric vehicles being imported into the US being raised from 25% to 100% back in May. And supposedly China has vowed retaliation. Next up, more EV news, because most automotive news these days tends to be EV news one way or the other. MAN, Truck and Bus, and E.ON are aiming to set up around 170 charging parks across Europe. The first of these charging sites has now gone to operation near Berlin. 2 further German sites will be following along very soon. They are aiming for that 170 locations. In total, that will mean around 400 truck charging points across Europe. Majority of which will be in Germany, which isn't a huge surprise given both companies are German. By the end of 2025, they're hoping to have. It says here in this Electrive article, which does have more than a whiff of copy and pasting of a poorly translated press release here. It says by the end of 2025, 80 are to be realised across Europe. And the existing MAN service branches will also be locations for public charging. It's not MAN specific, by the way. The chargers are accessible and open to commercial vehicles from other manufacturers. In the UK, similar is happening. Shell has opened its first electric truck charging station, and it's a 400 kilowatt DC charger at the wonderfully glamorous Markham Moor truck stop in Nottinghamshire. Markham Moor truck stop is the one opposite the Starbucks that used to be the really funky, futuristically shaped Little Chef. The charger itself has 2 connections, so it can charge 2 electric trucks simultaneously with 200 kilowatts each. And it's assumed here in this Electrive article that it is a CCS plug, as the megawatt charging system, the MCS, is not an official standard yet. No comment on whether that's MCS ready either, and neither was there for the MAN and E.ON ones either. So yeah, I think that's EV e-truck charging news over with for the week. But yes, more EV news as the Golden Murray Group's new ultralight vehicle platform wins £11 million of government funding. It's one of 46 UK projects that have got a share of £88 million innovation fund. GMG will share around a quarter of that with the Surrey-based Protean Electric, a developer of in-wheel motors for electric vehicles, and the group will use the funding to support the development of ultra-lightweight vehicle platform for future vehicles dubbed M-Lighten, which, according to this Autocar article, will not be exclusively for electric vehicles. I kind of hope this is more successful than the iStream. Lots of things always muttered about that they were going to use the iStream. I hope I've got the right name right. The iStream production methods and platforms that Gordon Murray Group came up with, but then none of them ever really reached fruition. So I don't know if that was a case of the type of small vehicle that was looking to use them, or if that was an initially unforeseen issue with that platform, with that manufacturing technique. I'm sure if one of you know, then you will let me know. Last one before the break is Porsche. Porsche has designed a 6-stroke engine. Supposedly it's cleaner and it's more powerful. Why it's 6-stroke is because traditionally a 4-stroke engine, as I'm sure you will all remember from thermodynamics and physics at school, is suck, squeeze, bang, blow. So there is so it pulls air and fuel in, it squashes it together, it lights it, and you get the power stroke with the push down, which is the one that actually makes the power. And then as the piston comes back up, it pushes the combustion gases out of the cylinder. Thing is that as it's pushed in those combustion gases, there is still always a little bit of fuel and a little bit of oxygen in there, which hasn't actually been burnt yet, and then that has to go out, and then catalytic converters and things all clean that sort of stuff up. What Porsche is proposing to do is to make it, instead of just the simple suck, squeeze, bang, blow, it goes suck, it goes squeeze, it goes bang. So far, so good. And then it goes squeeze again and bang again, and then it does blow. So what happens is it goes around and it basically ignites the same gas twice. So any leftover stuff does this second push, which is called scavenging, and because it's it's scavenging the leftover fuel and oxygen from that initial combustion. They're saying that the thermal efficiency potential of that 6-stroke is up to 50%. That's compared to 30% efficiency. That's a typical 4-stroke engine. We're all familiar with the Otto cycle, which is what I just went through. Obviously, there are other cycles as well. We've talked in the past at great length about the Miller cycle, and about one of the other cycles, which has escaped me, which is what most modern Mazdas run on. It's one of the reasons why they are both so efficient and clean, some of their petrol engines. It's why my NDMX5 just seemed to mostly run on air, really, especially if I took it into central London. Oh, those are the days. So there are other cycles, and this one is an additional one that certainly I was never taught about when I was at university, but that was some time ago now, which is a little bit scary. It'll be interesting to see. This is right at the minute only a patent. There doesn't actually seem to have been any. There's no sort of public demo of it or announcement of its use in either race cars, development cars, or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see just what happens with that. I love clever technology and good engineering. That brings us to a Guilt Minute. Quick break in the show where we ask for Tada financial support to keep the lights on, the hosting running. If you feel that Motoring Podcast is worth small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. The different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. But if you don't have any spare cash, we do completely understand. You can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, or by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. Podcast suppliers, of course, these days include YouTube, and a subscribe and a like on there would be much appreciated, because it moves us a little bit closer to being able to get some money from YouTube. If you've done all that, of course, and some of you do, then thank you very much. And the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues. Okay, new car news then. And let's start off with, I don't know what the order is, if there's sublime or ridiculous this week. Because Lotus is showing its sports car future with a wild Esprit-inspired 3-seater. According to Autocar. Yes, the Theory 1 concept car is supposedly Esprit-inspired. I assume that's because it's a mid-engined supercar and it has some pointy angles, therefore making it Esprit-inspired. Some debate around the world from the peanut gallery as to whether or not this is an attractive thing or it is an unattractive thing. I think what is fair to say is that it is more attractive than Lotus's current offerings. and possibly as a result more likely to find some customers than its current offerings. I think it's pretty fair to say that the current two pair of vehicles from Lotus are technically excellent, but in terms of being a Lotusness and the whole ethos behind the brand previously and aesthetically, they have not hit the mark, and that they're not selling in the numbers that Lotus wanted. I mean, we covered the revised planned sales figures the other week, and even then, they're down by 30%, and even then, they're still a bit on the hopeful side. So yeah, I mean, it's this is as far as it's a supercar. This is kind of cool, if a little bit bare carbon fiber on the inside. But the outside is kind of fun. The outside is very much in the Jota sketch school of automotive design, and it is the kind of thing that you do, the kind of bewinged, beswooped, sharp-angled. I don't know if it can be made or not. Kind of thing that you would scribble in the margins of your school books whenever you're boarding class, or at least I did. So yeah, I mean it's what is it? Let's give you some of the claimed numbers. It's a twin motor all-wheel drive electric powertrain, energy from a 70 kilowatt hour battery mounted beside the rear motor in the lightweight carbon fiber tub. It has a claimed 0-62 time of less than 2.5 seconds, top speed of 199 miles an hour. And yeah, that's it really. So yes, obviously there'll be a link to the Autocar story in the show notes, and you can go and look at it there. It is very much the chop strand carbon fiber, the compressed stuff, not the neat weave style. As well. So I don't know. It always just looks a little bit scruffy, and it looks like that awful fake stone that Mansory. Just there's so much of it that it looks like that awful fake stone that Sir Mansory had a phase of putting all across various luxury cars, and then showing at the Geneva Motor Show a few years ago. So that we might never see that again is no loss to humanity. Next up here is a concept. Again, it's the Renault Estafette. Obviously, we all know the Renault Estafette. Well, some of us do. It's the sort of not as famous little brother to the Peugeot and to the Citroën H van, but it was a small, cute one with the sort of two headlights down at the bottom. It always looked a little bit Eeyore, little bit sad. And this new concept is a small boxy van with two big round lights very low on the front. And that is how it is similar to the existing Estafette. It's quite cool, though. I mean, I'm only saying that because it's drawing that parallel. It also has a slidey side doors. But the idea is that this is a high-tech city-focused load lugger, says Autocar. The idea is that it is made for last few mile deliveries. So supposedly it's a little bit longer than the 3 Series at 4.87 meters, but it can turn like a Renault Clio. It's taller than a Transit. It's pretty narrow. So yeah, there's things in there like the reason for that is so that people can stand up and walk through to the cargo area, a little bit like the weird, ugly duckling USPS long life vehicles that they're not long life vehicle anymore, are they? The new post vans anyway here in the US. I've not seen one in real life, but the idea is that it's as easy as possible for people to use them for urban deliveries, wherever that might be. I'm trying to work out if there's any ideas of pricing or anything like that. No, not really at all. All it's saying is that this is the debut model from the French company's tie-up with Volvo Trucks called Flexis. That would be the debut model if it wasn't for all of the trucks, I suppose. The Renault D series, the Volvo FE, for example, being basically the same truck, but with different grills on the fronts of the cabs. Anyway, this is cute. Would I be upset if I saw these in European cities? Absolutely not. Not at all. It's very neat. Very neat. Oh, the chances of seeing them? Pretty small, really. Last little bit in Nir Kahn news is that if you want a new as opposed to a new but maybe hung around a bit as stock, Ineos Grenadier, then you might be in trouble because there is It says the production has paused as a critical supplier hits trouble and that there is a shortage of trim pieces, which means that output's unlikely to resume until 2025. Well, there are plenty of Grenadiers sitting waiting to be bought, so I don't think from an actual buyer point of view that this is necessarily a big deal. The thing that they're missing, of course, is our seats. It doesn't say it here, nobody's actually saying it, but what they're missing is seats. It's the problem is, of course, Recaro, and the issues that they've been having mean that they simply can't deliver, and there are no seats to be had. So despite my joke during the week about yes, they've run out of vanity, no, the problem is that they have run out of seats. There is nothing to sit on in your Grenadier. They're saying that this is an awkward moment because they're on the cusp of launching in the critical Chinese market. Okay, as well as in Mexico. Okay, so yeah, I don't understand how critical the Chinese market could be to the Grenadier. I have a funny feeling there are plenty of. They're probably going to complain. It looks like a knockoff of one of the Chinese fake defenders. Some of the ones you see on Twitter, which do look more defender than an Ineos. In fact, more defender than some of the defenders, I suppose. But yes, it's Let's see what happens there. Anyway, let's see. I mean, this was meant to be. As I said, an affordable, easy-to-fix utilitarian vehicle will be good for farmers. What has actually happened is, of course, they're now discovering that the farmers don't really want to buy them, despite what they said. And so they're pushing for that, for those more heavily customized, more heavily configured vehicles at the top end of the market. So there's been a bit of a change there. Sorry, that sounded a little bit negative, everyone. And I've got to say, my problem with the Ineos Grenadier isn't what it is. It's what it was said that it was going to be, and that how far from that original spec it's ended up. So it was going to be built in Britain, and it's not. It was going to be engineered here, and it wasn't. It was going to be affordable, and it's not. I mean, supposedly it's great off-road and stuff, and as long as you don't expect X5 like handling on the road, but why would you? But yeah, the challenge with the Grenadier for me isn't that it's bad. It's probably not bad. It's just it's so far from what was promised and what everybody said they were setting out to do that it isn't. That's why I get upset about it. By upset, I mean ranty. Anyway, let's move in to points of interest this week. And we've dug out a classic, actually, because people should really be reminded of it. And it's by, of course, a friend of the show, Nir Kahn. And it's called What Can Be Achieved When Why Not Becomes a Mantra. And really, it's about M111 4GR, let's just say it that way, Humvee from 2023 when Porsche did its first sort of armoured take on the Humvee. And what came from there. And how, if we say, well, let's try it, you can actually do stuff and you can actually change aesthetics, the way people think, the way people work, all of these kind of things. Definitely have a read. Nir's thoughts are always worthwhile. Once spent a great couple of hours with Nir wandering around a defence show in London. Myself and one of my colleagues who just couldn't believe this guy was just going over and critiquing all the stuff and explaining how things worked and how they should work. And it was really great. If anybody ever gets a chance to tour a defence show in here, you should definitely do it. List of the week next. And list of the week this week is from Autocar, and it is 20 very angry looking cars. So I was... This one fell to Andrew to choose one, so I hadn't chosen one. And there's some I agree with, some I don't agree with. I am going to choose the Mitsubishi Delica Mini. Yes, it's a K car. It's tiny. It's very, very square. It is like somebody has put the current generation Mitsubishi Delica in the boil wash. But it is grumpy. It is not happy to see you. It is not happy with what you're doing. I think it's really cool. I would happily have one, but it has that little sort of angry Pokemon type look to it, which is great. It's like a grumpy puppy or something. That's the one I would choose. Not only that, but it also has sliding rear doors, and sliding rear doors are the mark of a proper MPV. So it has a little slightly grumpy face, sliding rear doors, and the colour that this one's pictured in is really nice, and I really like it, and I would happily own it. So yeah, that's the one I'm going to choose. The other 19, there's some crackers in there, some very cool cars, and also the BMW XM. Should you want something that's not just grumpy, but also pretty repulsively ugly at the same time. Which leaves us with, and finally, C90 Adventures. Do you remember the guy who was driving across... he did a whole load of crazy adventures driving across place on a mini Jeep. I think a few weeks ago we covered part 1 of his trip to Area 51. It has been a little while. Part 2 of that masochistic trip is now out. So it's C90, a small C, the number 90, and then Adventures on YouTube, and it's quite something. Last time it had pontoon, as we last saw it, it had pontoons and it crossed a lake. This time, the Jeep now has ended up, because it has to cross hundreds of miles of snow, and it seems to have ended up with snowmobile tracks, which have not entirely a perfect solution, but yeah, it's excellent. It's a decent watch. It's fun. I think he's crazy for doing it, but in a kind of good way. And do watch out for the many male anatomy jokes all the way through. You have been warned. Also, as a warning, that's really reached the end of the show. Next week, I don't think there's any parish notes. Oh, there is one note. No. We should be recording on the normal day next week. Fingers crossed it's both of us, but we'll see just what happens. It may well just be me. And then, yeah, it's a little bit weird over the next few weeks. We'll tell you next week. But in the meantime, until then, don't forget that you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts of the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and thank you to all of you who do. And please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Best way to get in touch with Andrew is to search on... he's normally on Mastodon, to be honest, where if you search for Cracked Windscreen, you will find him there. He's also on LinkedIn under his real name of Andrew Clues. To get in touch with me, it's best to use, I guess, any of the social media platforms used by grown-ups. On all and any of them, I am at AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY. We'll both be back very soon, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley. He who isn't here has been Andrew Clues, and safe motoring.